Hello, everyone. In this episode of Misadventures in Travel, I am going to tell you about the time that we rode on Amtrak with an Amtrak undercover agent. Okay, so it was a trip to California, and traveling on this trip was my dad, me, my brother, and his friend. And I think that I was probably about 13 or 14, and so my brother would have been like 16 or 17. And his friend was the same age as him. And we were taking Amtrak. I think we went to Los Angeles first and then up the coast, and we went to San Francisco. And then I don't remember if we went more in California or we just came back. I'm not sure. But anyway, on this particular, but it was kind of the opposite of that trip that I told you about, that my dad got so sick and we missed the train and all that. And this was before that. So when we got on, I remember what the deal was. There was flooding. I think it was our spring break or winter break, like February, March. And there was flooding on the Empire Builder line somewhere. The Empire Builder is the train that goes between Seattle and Chicago. And that's the train we usually have to take because that's the one that goes closest to us. But there was flooding on the Empire Builder line. And so the Empire Builder was delayed. It was very, very late. And so we were going to miss our connection in Chicago because we would have had to take the Empire Builder to Chicago and then switch trains and get the westbound one to Los Angeles. So we were going to miss our connection. And so my mom, I think that was the deal. My mom drove us to, because we wouldn't have had any problem coming back, but we would have come back to Chicago and, we couldn't leave our car in some town where we weren't going to come back to. So my mom drove us down to Iowa somewhere, and it was late at night and to catch this train. And then she went back. She just dropped us off and went back. So we were actually catching the Chicago to Los Angeles train after it had left Chicago, like several stops in. So here's the problem with that. We were in coach. That was a long time to be in coach. And, it's 2, maybe even 3 nights on the train in coach, because that's 2/3 of the country you're crossing. And so, because most of the passengers had gotten on in Chicago, a lot of the seats were taken. And when we got on, which it was late at night and we were tired, we did not find 4 seats together anywhere. And I think there was only a place where there were 2 seats together. And you have to ride in certain cars depending on what your final destination is. And they don't even open the doors to the other cars when you get on at subsequent stops like that. Like in Chicago, they're all open, I think. But once you get on in other stops, they kind of sort you based on what your final destination is. And so we only had this like one car to work with. And so my dad let my brother and his friends sit together. So they got the 2 seats that were together. And then my dad and I had to take single seats next to strangers, which, gosh, that must have been so fun for me when I was 13 years old. But I don't remember who I was sitting next to. Oh, no, yes, I do. I remember the first person I was sitting next to was this man. And he was like a little older than my dad, so 40s, 50s. And I thought he seemed kind of creepy. And my dad got seated next to someone else. I don't know who it was. And after a little while, I just didn't feel comfortable sleeping next to this man. And so I asked my dad if we could switch. And he said, sure. And so we switched, and I still don't remember who I was next to then. But my dad ended up next to this man. Okay. Well, my dad talks to everyone on the train. And so he got to talking to this gentleman. And by breakfast the next morning, had found out that this man's job was he worked for Amtrak and he was an undercover agent for Amtrak spying, if you will, on the operations of the train and the train staff. And he was, taking notes and everything. I'm actually really surprised that he told my dad this. Because I would think he's not supposed to, but I don't know, maybe he trusted my dad wasn't going to say anything. My dad's just some regular Joe from Wisconsin, but anyway, my dad thought this was absolutely fascinating. And so he and this guy were kind of hanging out the whole trip because Dad thought this was really interesting what this guy was doing. Like, he would eat with us in the dining car and he would take notes like on the food, like, my toast was burned, or I asked for this and they didn't bring it the right way, or, things like that. And then it got kind of comical. Like, he was like, we would be in the space between the cars and you're not supposed to open that window and stick your head out because that's really dangerous, And like the car attendant or whatever was right there. And the guy would he'd open the window and stick his head out and stick it outside, feel the breeze for a little bit and go, oh, this is great. Shut the window and go over and write down, train car attendant is letting people stick their head out the window. So, it was all sorts of stuff like that. It was everything that he was observing, like about the behavior of the crew and the operation of the train and everything. So it was really funny. So we just got kind of a big kick out of it. But it ended up actually being a big thing because on the second or third night or whatever, a number of people, my dad included, got sick of sleeping in coach. And so there were apparently some empty sleeper compartments available. And so there were people who were paying to upgrade to a sleeper car. And my dad was one of them. And I think it must have been him and me took the sleeper car. And my brother, or maybe we got two, I don't know. I really don't remember. But anyway, it turned out that the car attendant or whatever, or the conductor, I don't remember, one of the Amtrak employees was pocketing the money and not reporting that he sold these rooms to Amtrak. He was just under the table selling people these rooms. And I don't know if he was even charging what he was supposed to charge, or maybe he was charging, maybe what it was he was reporting it, but he was charging more than the actual price. That might have been what it was. And he was pocketing the extra, keeping it for himself. And this undercover Amtrak guy, because he had buddied with my dad told him about this, and it was a whole investigation. And when we got to, I think, Los Angeles, he got arrested. Or hauled off by Amtrak security or something. Like, it was a big deal when we got to the final station. They came and hauled this Amtrak employee away. So that was actually kind of exciting. We were like, whoa. So that was freaky. So just so you know, I knew that there were air marshals. They're not, they're there for your safety. They're not there to but I really kind of wondered after this. And you have people who go into stores and restaurants and things like that and report on the, all the goings on and everything to check up on how places are doing. But I hadn't realized before that this was a thing on Amtrak, and I'm sure it's probably a thing on cruise ships and airlines too. So you never know. You could be sitting next to a spy. But that was my story of the time that we met an undercover Amtrak agent. So it was just kind of a fun one. So I thank you guys for watching this video. And I have a couple more misadventures and travel videos coming up, and I hope you will check those out. And I'll see you next time. Have a good day.